And I just spilled some of it on me, so that's professional.
See, that's what should be left in, you know?
Welcome to episode 2 of the Reliably Intermittent Podcast with Clemens Nelson and Associates. We're going to be back again here with you for the first time. As always, I'm Aaron Ware, Regional Manager with CNA. And I'm going to allow my co-host for today to introduce himself.
Drew Esposito here once again. Looking forward to another fun episode.
Yeah, I think we figured this time we'd lighten it up a little bit after taking a deep dive, into Department of Labor rule updates. I think today we wanted to kind of dive into an offshoot or maybe a different type of episode for everybody, kind of a This Week in HR. If you're listening on one of the podcast streams, you can't see my air quotes, but This Week in HR is something where we're going to try to highlight something maybe interesting, maybe something fun, or as is the case today, depending on your perspective, a bold or maybe stupid employee. So we're going to go back to New York. And last week there was a report that came out of the Metro Transit Authority where there's no simpler way to put it. 3 employees, and we'll let Drew tell you about some of these employees, put together a man cave in a secret room underneath Grand Central Station. I don't know how much cooler it gets or how much dumber it gets in HR than secret rooms with secret compartments hidden under one of the oldest subway rail stations in the country.
High value real estate, public sector, tax dollars, mini fridges. Come on. It's everything.
Waste, questionable futon
very questionable
procurement. We'll show you some of the highlights and some of the pictures here, but the long and short of it, 3 employees were suspended last week following not one, but 2 complaints into the secret room underneath Grand Central Station. And like I said, it was, I guess, an unmapped room within Inception style, another larger storage room. So you've got essentially a storage closet within a storage room that these guys were able to smuggle in a microwave, a mini fridge, a flat screen TV, a futon, some kind of cot chaise lounge structure, all and cabinets that would fit these things so that they could hide them from evidently lacking prying eyes. So this thing first came out apparently through a complaint in February of 2019. So Drew, when you were looking into this, it seems like it didn't quite raise enough suspicion for the MTA to take a dive into it.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. I don't understand. And this is a common error, I guess, with management, right? Where management fails to do investigations and fails to have accountability. But that's what their IG, their internal counsel that did the inspector, said. They received these 2 complaints and nothing was done. And they weren't like little complaints. I think it was, there's these 3 employees that are partying and getting drunk at Grand Central Station in a secret room. I mean, I think they're pretty close to what exactly was going on, and there's no follow-up. It just, I don't know what to say. I mean, as an employer rep, these are the type of things that make your mind, go wild when you hear this stuff.
Well, and for those of you that are going to be watching this on the YouTube stream, I'm going to share some photos here for you real quick.
Yeah, bring those up because they're great. I mean, the pull-up bar, there you go, that iron gym.
Yeah, I mean,
like in the quick pumping.
Yeah, when you're going to party at work, you want to make sure you have a pull-up / push-up bar because evidently, as we'll show, in a room that can fit a full-size futon, the one that we all slept on in college, that might be the one that some of us listening actually did sleep on in college. We don't know where they got it.
Craigslist,
yeah. Or, a wonderful flat screen TV. It's amazing that they got this stuff down there. But they're just completely ignoring the fact that these guys are getting their party on. What I found fascinating from reading some of the news clips and the news reports is that they aren't for sure that they did this on duty, that they think maybe this was just an after hours get together hang spot for these 3 employees. But for sure, we're certain this was underneath what they say, track 114.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in your mind's eye, we'll go back away from some of these photos. If you're thinking, did they have this party spot under the subway? They 100% did. This, I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah. When you read this, when you heard about this, like, put it into our life. Like, if a client calls, like, what do you do when you find this out?
Well, one would think that you get a complaint of this nature, you start to look into it. Like, I don't know, immediately. Because obviously someone had enough detail that was subsequently corroborated through some kind of internal investigation. Because the initial complaint, as I saw it, on February 19th, somebody said, hey, they've got a TV, they've got a fridge, these guys are partying down in one of the storage rooms. You look into it. If for no other, there are many operational reasons why you want to look into something like this. You've got, this one's some of the Trinity or cardinal offenses in HR. You've got the potential for time theft. These guys are partying on duty. Misuse of resources, because I believe that mini fridge happened to be an MTA mini fridge. Probably the microwave. Again, I can't speak to the total gym, and I can't speak to the TV. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they didn't procure a television from the MTA. Maybe they did. But the point is, you investigate these things because somebody had enough information. And odds are, it was probably somebody that wasn't getting to play in the reindeer games. Because I got to imagine, John Q. Public subway rider isn't seeing this room. It's probably somebody in-house. So you're running the risk, if you don't investigate this quickly and thoroughly, of morale issues, of other people going, oh, okay, well, if I can create my Inception room, then, or if they can, I'm going to try to find a spot too. And I can't reiterate enough. These guys had hidden cabinets and closets where they stashed this stuff. This took time. This took effort. This took planning. What were these guys doing on duty instead of, doing this on duty instead of doing their job? Because what were the guys employed as?
Oh, one was electrical foreman, an electric foreman. One was a carpenter foreman, and then one was a lineman. And I'm not sure what a lineman scope is in the MTA sense, because I've never dealt with any subway working employees, so I don't know if a line worker is someone who's working the line, like the actual physical rail line, or are they manning one of the booths, or is it like an electric worker? In my experience, someone who's considered a line worker is usually a lineman, but I think it just said a line worker, so it doesn't strike me as an electrician.
Well, in an organization like that could go 100 different ways.
Exactly. But I also wonder, I go, like you said, this took time, like, what are the supervisors doing? Like I just, how does this happen? And how does this all happen under your nose? How does this never get followed up on? There's so many errors that have happened through this whole process, or that I can imagine happened, I guess. It just makes it really hard to stomach. If I'm a New York City taxpayer, I'm pissed.
Well, and let's look at it too. Let's go back to, it was originally brought to people that could do something about it. It was brought to their attention in February 2019. This report, like I said, this is This Week in HR. This report came out on September 24th, 2020. It took a second complaint in July. You can't even fall back on hashtag COVID-19, hashtag the Rona as an excuse. You had a full year as the MTA to look into this. To, I don't know, just go explore some of your space to figure out if there's any veracity to it. Like, I'm not even saying take a full-throated, call the police department, the riot squad to come in and look at this. Just go into the storage room, knock on some doors, move some stuff. I don't know, like a modicum of basic investigation.
Yeah.
Because if you fail to do that, and the people that know that this is going on know that they've complained, wait to do this again, you've got all this egg on your face from something that took 18, 19 months to fix, that you probably could have fixed, or at least investigated and known what was going on within what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Less, right? Like,
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that there's a union rep involved that maybe had something to do that they couldn't get scheduled a pre-D like we deal with here in Ohio. I'm assuming an organization of that type in New York State is organized. So you probably have some procedural hurdles to jump over, just like 90% of our clients do. There might be something in their union contract that says things have to be investigated in X, Y, or Z way. And you have to have an available rep, and you have to have the union attorney, and you have to hoops to jump through. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that it took them 3 weeks to go from complaint to basic investigation to whose is this, some of the particulars.
Get a grasp on the situation.
Yeah, because we know it's there. I don't know if there was some kind of, we're going to allow these employees enough rope to kind of hang themselves so we can catch them in the act.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing I could think of in my head is we know about the room, but they're not using it in a very frequent basis. So they're like in a year-long stakeout to try to hammer down which employees are the ones using this room. But then when you read like the details, it's like a half-drunk beer in the fridge, a beer in the waste basket. It's like, I guarantee you they're not coming in once a month, right? They're probably coming in on a semi-frequent basis. Yeah. That's just a hunch.
I would imagine that if you're going to go through this level of effort to set up hidden compartments and futons under the subway, that you're using the thing.
Absolutely.
And one would assume Grand Central Station, it's Manhattan, that's prime real estate. That's close to work. Odds are, if you're working in a job like that, you probably don't have the means to procure space that would stash all of these things in the shoebox apartments that cost $2,000 a month in Manhattan. These guys probably were like, oh, this is convenient. Nobody's going to catch us. Let's throw some cool stuff in here so we can party. Go upstairs, hop on the subway, and then go back to our house wherever.
Yeah. I mean, you start thinking, as with anything, I think with human resources and employment related, I start spiraling, right? So it's like worst case scenario, right? All right, there's beer there, so they're obviously drinking. So now I've got a guy who's drinking, maybe they're drinking in excess. Now I got a drunk employee who's doing the repair work, an electrician, a carpenter on Grand Central Station, an iconic building, and they're foremen, so they're supervisors. So I got a drunk supervisor. Now, okay, let's say, hey, maybe they were off duty. Okay, so now I've got just a free lease, like you said, valuable real estate. I got some party animal guys. Are they bringing, sexual partners back there? What's going on? Is it turning into some sort of, nefarious situation? I mean, it can get so ugly. I think on the low end, because I think the first complaints came from employees internally. And then employees internally make this complaint. They're saying, we're probably sick of doing work when these 3 employees are slacking off. On the low end, what's happening to the morale of the rest of these employees? Why am I working and watching other people sleep? We all get the same raises. We all get the same benefits. Why am I busting my hump? It's like, it shows the importance of actually having your finger on the pulse of what's going on in your agency.
Sure.
I mean, and I think right now with COVID, when people talking about teleworking, working from home, alternative schedule arrangements, the biggest challenge I think is supervisors that want to work from home. And it's like, well, how do you actually supervise? I get your frontline people that maybe can do it. If you're supervising people, but you're never there, maybe they're going to create their own little special, she
Home
shed.
away from home.
Yeah, their she shed or their man cave in your office.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I think it's a universal truth. When the cat's away, the mice will play. And that works in the workplace. If there's no supervision there, the people who take advantage of the system, they pull a little bit more string. They take a little bit more leeway. And then they draw in some of your other people too. And it can really have a detrimental effect.
Well, and then we talk about this in other contexts too, where once we've made the call, we've done the investigation, we know what kind of discipline we think is appropriate given the facts, given the infraction. Take this situation and apply it to a different group of employees that have committed some kind of infraction, that know this is going on, that know this is there, know that it's been complained about, know that nothing's been done about it. And you're going to apply discipline to those employees. And then they're going to come in their grievance meeting, or they're going to come in their pre-disciplinary conference and go, John, Rick, and Todd party under track 114 every third day, and you haven't done anything about them, yet I showed up late, or I took an extra break and whatever the issue is. How in the world are you going to apply rules to me that you're going to allow those goobers to party and play video games under track 114 in their secret space?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. And then you extrapolate it. Not only did you not discipline, the three individuals over here who you knew about, right? The person you chose to discipline for a minor to serious infraction, maybe they were a member of a protected class, right? So now we're not even talking about disparate treatment for a discipline. We're talking about discriminatory act. Why am I only disciplining, the women in this department, but the men over here? And I know that's a generality because I'm saying these guys are tradesmen, which are, typically filled by men. But let's just say the men are getting off scot-free and the women are getting disciplined over here and getting their feet held to the fire. You're talking about treating people different on the basis of sex.
I think fundamentally here, this is, well, and at the risk of sounding redundant, this goes to the core of fundamental investigation, application of rules, right? At the end of the day, you're on notice of something that is, I'd say, substantially, significantly egregious misconduct. I don't think there's anybody that's going to argue creation of a secret man cave in your place of work, using it off duty, probably on duty, isn't egregious misconduct. And we're ignoring it for all intents and purposes, or at least allowing the perception that we're ignoring it and not addressing it with the efficiency and severity that the situation dictates. So you're just setting a terrible, terrible precedent for anything else you need to do. And I think we can understand that probably New York's MTA has more employees than several of the counties that we work with combined, right? I mean, that's a huge organization, layers and layers of employees, layers of classification, layers of bureaucracy. Again, probably their labor contract is 200 pages long and 100 years old, with all kinds of different hoops and whatnot to jump through. I can't think of or fathom a situation where something this obvious and egregious took 19 months. And the result is you look like clowns when it hits the media.
It's all over the place. Just what
they talking about in Ohio.
Yeah, just what they want to hear while dealing with a national health pandemic that I don't think it's arguable. I think New York City is probably the hardest hit, geographic area in the United States when it comes to fatalities and things. I mean, the amount of the lives lost are tragic. And now,
in a service that everybody has to use, I can't, we didn't show you the whole room because we don't have pictures of the whole room, but I can't imagine there's a ton of distancing going on in there. And these guys are doing Lord knows what, coming and going. We don't know what they're doing, what precautions I mean, there's all kinds of different, like you said, you could spiral on this 50 different ways.
what do you think the defense is? What do you think, if this is presented to us, what do you think the employee's defense is of why I shouldn't be terminated or I shouldn't receive a severe level of discipline? Throw out that don't worry about union, don't worry about at will, none of that, just classic progressive discipline principles. What do you think their defense is?
Well, I think their defense, I would say, in all reality, if they have a defense, the best defense is you all knew about it and you let it go on. Like, it must not have been a big deal to you. We didn't, maybe they heard about it being in the know and was like, well, we're caught, so let's just see what happens. Maybe that's a defense. I'm again, not vouching for its quality.
Yeah.
You
knew about it, failed to do anything, therefore you approved it.
Yeah, kind of tacit approval.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think they didn't care. I think these guys were probably in a situation where they're like, oh, if we get caught, we get caught, but this is going to be super sweet while it's going on.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of a good defense. Can you?
The beer is what throws me. Like, I'm older, there's a lot of things that throw me, but
we're not doing it on duty.
Yeah, or like assuming they didn't set up any type of surveillance or anything like that, the employer has a hard time, I think. What if I say, I get 15-minute breaks, I get an hour lunch break. Yes, we did set up this room, but I only used it on my breaks.
Mm-hmm. So really the act there is just the setting up the room.
So like, what's the difference between me taking my break in the storage shed and me taking my break on a bench outside, or me going to, a Chipotle for an hour? What's the difference?
Assuming they were able to smuggle in all their own stuff and they didn't, procure MTA property.
Yeah. I mean, that I think is their best argument, which is, I think, sometimes where in some of the articles they got into detail about, like you said, this is a room within a room. So this is where I think a lot of people get frustrated because they feel like we have to make preposterous, hypotheticals of how bad this could go. And this is where, like, employees a lot of times get frustrated, employers get frustrated. But I always take the position is, why do I have to wait for the catastrophic to happen, right, to take the discipline? So I thought it was a good point, whoever wrote it. I can't remember which article, if it was CNN or if it was the National Post when I first read it. They talked about, like, firefighters responding to calls and blueprints and knowing the rooms and knowing where actually people would be, right? And there shouldn't be people there. So if they're responding to a cave-in or something like that, or a fire, they would never go there, and that person would die, right? Like let's just be realistic. Also, like, they wired it, so it's like, yeah, you're on your own time, but it was never checked for code or anything like that. And what if you started a fire and thousands and tens of thousands of people in a subway died because of a fire started in a secret room? And I always hear employees, but that didn't happen. It's like, yeah, I don't want to wait for it to happen. I feel like this is a pandemic in the US where we don't want to do preventative maintenance or preventative medicine or work out. Like,
we have these rules in place with serious consequences to avoid that occurring. You don't get the benefit of the doubt or the benefit of the thing not occurring when you violated those rules with serious consequences.
Yeah, I've been getting so frustrated, I feel like, for maybe the past 14, 16 months. I've heard so many times where it's like, but nothing bad happened. And since nothing bad happened, my discipline should just be a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, it shouldn't be as bad as it could be because that horrible thing that the rule was designed to prevent from occurring didn't actually occur.
Yeah.
So you don't get the benefit of actually discovering this problem in advance of catastrophe, which it's just preposterous.
Yeah.
It's
I guess mind blown.
I guess the object lesson, Drew, from something like this, so we can kind of put a bow on it, because we like you said, we could spiral out on all the different possibilities and permutations, and we don't have their contract. We don't operate in New York, so I'm not going to sit here and speculate too wildly on the applicable rules given a situation. But I think there are some general maxims that apply in any HR supervisor subordinate relationship. If someone comes in with salacious details or even just general information on policy violations, investigate it. Use your head about yourself and investigate what the allegations are, figure out if there's veracity to it, figure out if there's, proof of it, figure out what rules are at issue, figure out what process, what steps, what things you have to do to actually address them, and do it. Because I know you've seen it in some of the stuff that we do. When you draw these things out, there's a question that you get asked from arbitrators. If it was so bad that you had to fire them, why did it take so long to take the action? Why did you allow the thing to go on? Why did you allow them to continue doing the thing? And then X number of months, whatever, into the future, that's when you decided to take the action.
Not even serious enough to trigger an investigation.
Yeah.
Right. Not even serious enough to trigger an investigation. It's I think that's the takeaway too. I completely agree. It's kind of investigations aren't limited to, discriminatory harassment investigations. They really need to be done in a timely fashion for any work rule, policy infraction, safety infraction, written or unwritten, by the way, right? Like there may well be written policies on this, don't get me wrong. But a lot of times there aren't the specific rule. Like there's no express rule that you can't create a secret man cave. It doesn't mean it's not a violation, right? Still investigate it.
Yeah, that's probably going back to your question. What's the best defense? Well, that's not in the handbook that I can't set up a man cave in a secret room with secret compartments under the subway.
Yeah.
You're probably right. We didn't think anybody would be that stupid. And we can't possibly craft rules to address every level of stupidity that we're going to face.
Yeah.
So
this was a good one. This was
try to have some fun with them,
Yeah.
And try to leave you with something useful.
Yeah. Well, I think that covers, all the details for this one. But I'm going to think about this one for the next couple months, trying to figure out how to advise my clients. I know that.
Sure. And how maybe we can stash a man cave somewhere here in the office.
You got a good one over there, right?
Yeah, we can get maybe somewhere. I don't know that we need the PlayStation, but maybe a TrackMan, maybe some 10-foot ceilings. I don't know. Anyway, nevertheless, thanks again for joining us. We encourage everybody to look on. We're located, obviously, there'll be the video on our YouTube channel, the Reliably Intermittent Podcast. We're now up on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Google Podcasts, we should be up soon. Bear with us. We're still kind of wading our way through the tech waters. But as we do these things, I encourage you to rate, review, subscribe. Everybody that's listening to the podcast has heard that. Tell your friends, tell your family. We're not going to dive solely into the esoteric of HR and Department of Labor rules. We'll try to have some fun and try to tie it into what you can do with it. But again, thank you for joining us on our journey here. And until next time, I want to say thank you. And Drew, any parting things?
No, until next time.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. We want to thank you again for joining us on the Reliably Intermittent Podcast. Now it's time for a bit of a disclaimer. This podcast and all others on this feed are for informational purposes only and not legal advice. No attorney-client relationship is formed by listening to this podcast or any others on the feed. Should you require or want legal advice, we encourage you to reach out to an attorney or statutory legal counsel, as the case may be. Thanks again for joining us, and we will talk to you next time.